and everybody was scared to talk about it because he'd have him killed.
What would you do if someone you looked up to, someone praised as a legend, a cultural icon, suddenly walked out of a courtroom with a smile despite weeks of serious allegations and deeply disturbing footage? That's exactly what happened when the verdict was read in Diddy's trial, and across the country, Joe Rogan was watching it unfold in real time. His reaction, shock, confusion, and a powerful call out of the entire entertainment world that let this happen.
Like all this Diddy that's coming out. Like,
I was just going to say, doesn't that sound topical?
Jesus Christ. The first day of the trial, did you pay attention to any of that stuff? I looked at it for like 10 minutes this morning, and I was like, I gotta stop. I can't look at this.
When the words "not guilty" echoed through the courtroom, the reaction was unlike anything anyone expected. Cameras snapped, gasps filled the room, and even the judge paused for a moment. The trial had been intense. Over the course of several days, powerful footage had been revealed. Testimonies were given, witnesses stepped forward, people expected a serious outcome. But instead, Diddy walked free. And Joe Rogan, watching it all play out, couldn't believe what he was seeing.
I mean, everybody hung with Diddy. That's the other tricky thing. Like, Diddy hung out with everybody. And I've spoken to a bunch of people who are like, yo, great dude, like, always there for you, never asked for a single thing.
Till 1 a.m.
And then freak off.
Everybody says, get out of the house.
Yeah.
It's like the gremlins start eating after midnight.
Joe had already talked about the case on his podcast. He warned listeners weeks ago that something strange was going on, but even he didn't think the verdict would go in Diddy's favor. I thought the evidence was strong, Joe said. I thought the videos said it all. But apparently, the jury didn't see it that way. What shocked Joe even more was how quickly the story seemed to fade from the news. 1 minute, it was everywhere. The next, total silence. No celebrities were speaking out, no networks were pressing the issue, and Joe knew exactly why. People are scared, Joe said. They don't want to lose jobs or burn bridges. They don't want to risk being blacklisted, so they stay quiet even when they know something's wrong. That silence hit Joe hard. He brought up how many famous people had worked with Diddy. They took pictures with him. They performed at his parties. They wore his clothing line. Now, with the verdict in, where were they? Why wasn't anyone speaking up?
P. Diddy party. This is what happens to the white man.
It's so unfortunate.
You gotta pull back though, so they can see. That's crazy. Matt, move out the way. You're still alive. Look at that. Look. What you?
Look at the drink on his head.
And that's James from Simeon Mobile Disco. He is a actual DJs aren't supposed to pass out, but when they come to one of my parties, this is what happens to them.
Joe pointed to the courtroom footage that had been shown during the trial. It wasn't just a few blurry clips. It was clear, sharp, and direct. Cameras placed inside Diddy's mansion showed guests entering the property, being asked to hand over their phones, and being led to specific rooms. It didn't look like a party. It looked like something much more organized and controlled. You could see it in their faces, Joe said. They weren't relaxed. They were stiff. They looked like they were waiting for something, maybe even permission to speak. One part of the footage showed guests being asked to sign forms as soon as they arrived. No one was allowed to record. No one could use their phone. They were told where to sit and when to move. Joe said it reminded him more of a production set than a celebration. It was all too perfect, he explained. Like a show, but not the fun kind. This was the type of thing where people looked nervous to even smile the wrong way.
What's going to happen though, you think?
Well, Diddy's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. I think he's probably going to get.
Think he's going to sing though?
I don't know. I don't even think it matters. I mean, it's a lot of it is.
But then it's just another Epstein. It's another Ghislaine Maxwell, where somebody gets indicted and nobody else indicted for trafficking kids to
right to no one.
And yet, none of it was enough to convince the jury. Joe questioned how that was possible. If this had been anyone else, would they have gotten the same verdict? He asked. Or is this just what happens when you're rich, famous, and powerful. Joe then turned his focus toward the music industry. He talked about how so many of its biggest stars had been connected to Diddy at some point. These people knew him well, Joe said. They went to his events. They made money with him. You're telling me not one of them saw anything weird? Not one person noticed how strange things felt at those gatherings? He mentioned that several former guests had come forward in court telling stories about being invited to parties and not being told where they were going. Some said they weren't allowed to leave. Others claimed they were warned not to talk to specific people or to avoid asking questions. One witness even said they felt trapped for hours without clear instructions about what was going on.
It's just amazing how many people in the Diddy party list that are supporting Kamala. Too.
Yeah, seriously. It's like insane.
Publicly, openly, all in.
Yes. It's like J-Lo was like his ex-girlfriend. and it's like now deciding she's like warning people against Trump. I'm like, well, wait a second. So how many people did she warn against Diddy?
Right.
Oh, 0. Okay.
Right.
Well, maybe we shouldn't trust her opinion.
He was filming everybody, right?
That's the rumors. Yeah, I don't know that there's any proof or anything other than that.
The thing is, like, we're getting the rumors from the internet, and the internet thinks that the Taliban took out that bridge in Baltimore. So it's like, who knows? Who knows what's real?
That's what Diddy's lawyers, I think, said. It was like, yeah, these are just trumped up charges. Not trumped up. I don't think they said that, but like bullshit charges.
Dude, when Homeland Security invades your house,
you got problems
with dudes with fucking guns and body armor.
Like if she's gonna be warning people, why did she never warn anyone about Diddy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so strange to watch play out. It seems like the Diddy thing was like an Epstein type compromise deal where he had, whether he was doing it himself, conceivably, people want to think that he's attached to some intelligence agency or something like that. I think he's a gangster who made $1 billion and knew how to control people by compromising them. That's what I think.
Joe didn't name names, but he didn't have to. This is about a pattern, he explained. It's not just one night or one mistake. This is something that went on for years, and people let it happen because they didn't want to lose their spot at the table. The public reaction was just as intense. Online, people posted their disbelief. Hashtags trended within minutes. Viewers who had followed the trial from the beginning were furious. Many believed the evidence had been more than enough to hold Diddy accountable. But now, with the verdict in, they were left feeling like the system had failed again. Joe echoed those thoughts on his show. The justice system isn't broken, he said. It's just not built to work the same for everyone. He also questioned the motives behind some of Diddy's supporters. Joe noticed that certain celebrities had stayed silent throughout the entire trial. But the moment Diddy walked free, they were suddenly back to posting pictures with him or promoting his work. That tells you everything you need to know, Joe said. It's not about truth, it's about status. Even though the court had spoken, Joe believed this wasn't the end of the story. In his eyes, the verdict may have cleared Diddy legally, but not morally. There's a difference between being found not guilty and actually being innocent, he said. And I think a lot of people know that. He also warned fans to stop idolizing celebrities without asking questions. Just because someone's famous doesn't mean they're a role model, Joe said. Fame is not the same as character. As the podcast continued, Joe spoke directly to young people trying to make it in the entertainment world. He told them to be careful who they trust. If someone offers you an opportunity, but it doesn't feel right, walk away. You don't owe anyone anything, especially if they're trying to control you. He stressed the importance of staying grounded, having good people around you, and never giving up your values just to fit in. It's better to make it slow and honest than fast and fake, Joe added. That's what no one tells you when you're chasing success. Joe also praised the few people who had the courage to come forward during the trial. He said it takes real strength to stand up and speak your truth, especially when the person you're speaking against has more power than you. Those people are heroes, he said. They didn't have to do it, but they did. All right, and that matters. To support others in similar situations, Joe announced that all the profits from that episode would go to organizations helping young artists and creators. These programs offer legal help, mental health services, and safe spaces where people can share their stories without fear. If the industry won't protect you, then we have to protect each other, Joe said. As the episode wrapped up, Joe made one final point. We can't change the verdict, he admitted. But we can change the conversation. He reminded his audience that justice isn't just something that happens in courtrooms. It happens when people pay attention, speak up, and demand better. Don't look away just because it's over, Joe warned, because for a lot of people, the pain doesn't stop when the trial ends. He left his viewers with a message of hope and responsibility. If you're watching this, you're part of the solution, he said. Don't be silent, don't be scared, and don't be fooled by the lights, the cameras, and the fame. Look deeper, ask questions, and above all, stay human. In the end, Joe Rogan's message wasn't just about Diddy. It was about truth, courage, and the importance of not letting power silence what's right. The trial may be over, the verdict is official. But for those paying attention, the conversation has only just begun. After Joe Rogan's initial reaction to the verdict, his studio phone started buzzing nonstop. Fellow comedians, podcasters, and even former music insiders began reaching out. Some were angry, others confused, a few simply didn't know what to say. Joe decided to open the floor. On his next episode, he brought in several guests to talk about what this meant. Not just for Diddy's future, but for the future of accountability in entertainment as a whole. First to join the table was a former record executive who had been in the industry for over 20 years. He didn't name names, but he made it clear that Diddy wasn't the only one who held private events with tightly controlled environments. He described a culture where power was everything, and if you had enough of it, no one would question your actions. It's not always about what happens in the open, he said. It's what happens in the shadows, and who has the power to keep those shadows dark. Joe nodded. That's what bothers me the most. Everyone saw this coming, and yet nobody acted until it reached the courtroom, and now even that didn't matter. The next guest was a young artist who once turned down an invitation to one of Diddy's infamous parties. She had a gut feeling something wasn't right. I remember getting the invite, she said. My manager said it would be good for networking, but something in me just said no. Looking back now, I'm glad I trusted that instinct. Joe encouraged her. Your story is so important. So many young people are being told to ignore their gut and do whatever it takes to succeed, but that's a dangerous game. Their conversation touched on the larger problem of celebrity worship. Joe shared that he's noticed a growing pattern of fans defending celebrities no matter what they do. There's a group of people out there who think fame makes someone untouchable, but it doesn't. In fact, sometimes it just hides what we should be looking at. That led to a powerful point about personal responsibility. Joe reminded his viewers that real change doesn't start in courtrooms. It starts with the public. You don't have to support someone just because they've got hits on the radio or followers on social media. You have a choice. As the episode continued, Joe played a series of clips from older interviews and behind-the-scenes moments involving Diddy. Looking back with new context, many of these moments felt unsettling. You ever watch something again and suddenly it feels different, Joe asked? That's happening now. People are rewatching things and noticing details they missed before. He mentioned one interview where Diddy bragged about being able to throw the wildest events that no one would ever forget. At the time, people laughed. Now they weren't laughing. They were asking what actually happened at those events. To dig even deeper, Joe invited a legal expert to join the conversation. She explained how a not guilty verdict doesn't mean nothing happened. All it means is that the prosecution couldn't convince the jury beyond a reasonable doubt. But public opinion, that's different. People can use their own judgment, Joe leaned in. So you're saying this isn't over, not in the public eye? Not even close, she replied. In fact, it's just beginning. They talked about how public pressure has caused companies, sponsors, and brands to start backing away from Diddy. A few major labels removed him from promotional content. Some canceled future collaborations. And while no one said it directly, it was clear that people were moving to protect their own images. Joe compared it to when a storm clears the sky. It's like people are waking up. They're realizing that silence doesn't protect them anymore. It just connects them to the problem. The conversation eventually turned toward the role of social media. While some fans still supported Diddy, many others voiced outrage. Posts calling for transparency and justice flooded timelines. Old clips resurfaced. Former collaborators began getting tagged in comments, demanding they explain their silence. One viral post showed a split screen. On one side, Diddy smiling after the verdict. On the other, screenshots from the security footage shown in court. The caption read, "One of these is truth. The other is performance." Joe found that post powerful. It's not about canceling anyone, he said. It's about truth. It's about not letting a smile erase everything that led up to this moment. As backlash grew, some of Diddy's business partners quietly pulled away. One fashion brand delayed a product launch that had featured his name. Another deleted a commercial from YouTube. It was clear that companies were nervous, and Joe made sure his audience understood why. Money follows trends, he explained. If enough people speak up, the business world listens, even if the legal world doesn't. That's when Joe introduced a new idea. A public watchdog group made up of artists, creatives, and legal experts who could investigate similar cases before they hit court. If we can't trust the system to protect people, then we need to build something ourselves, he said. Listeners loved the idea. Comments poured in, emails flooded Joe's team with support. People wanted to help. They wanted to make sure no one else felt powerless. Joe emphasized that this wasn't about taking people down. It was about lifting people up, about making the industry safe for everyone, not just the most powerful. If you're an artist, a dancer, a writer, you deserve to chase your dream without fear, he said. You shouldn't have to give something up just to survive in this world. In a later episode, Joe responded to critics who accused him of being too harsh. "I'm not out to ruin anyone," he said, "but I am here to ask questions. If that makes people uncomfortable, maybe they should think about why." He reminded his audience that the goal was transparency, honesty, fairness. If someone's innocent, the truth will protect them. But if someone's hiding something, the truth will find them. Joe continued using his platform to spotlight other stories that had been buried. He began featuring interviews with people from all corners of the entertainment world, some well-known, some completely new, who had experienced the pressure and fear that come with chasing fame. Each new episode revealed another layer of how broken things had become. But instead of just complaining, Joe pushed for real change. He brought in activists. He promoted new organizations. He shared tools for young creatives to learn their rights. By this point, it was clear that the Diddy case was more than a headline. It had become a turning point, and Joe Rogan was right in the middle of it. The most powerful moment came when a young producer, just 19 years old, called in to thank Joe. "I almost signed a deal with someone like Diddy," he said, "but I watched your show. I realized I didn't want to trade who I am for a shot at being famous." Joe sat quietly for a moment, taking it in, then he smiled. "That's why we do this." As the movement continued to grow, other public figures began joining in. More podcasts picked up the story. YouTube channels, music blogs, and even late-night hosts began asking the hard questions they once avoided. The fear was fading and the truth was rising. Joe ended one of his most emotional episodes by saying, "We don't have to accept the way things have been. We can build something better, something honest, safe, and real." In a world that often looks the other way, Joe Rogan made a choice to face the truth head on. And now he's inviting everyone else to do the same.